Sometimes I go back in my dreams to Bristol. You can hear Jamaican music and taste the Asian sweets, then to the adventure playground.
It's a familiar feeling, and it's just memories, the memories that are here, you know, just unforgettable memories that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Felix Road Adventure Playground.
Adventure playgrounds are unique urban spaces. They've been around in the UK for over 60 years and were modelled on a junk playground in Copenhagen set up during the Second World War. They were places where children could use tools, build dens, light fires and make use of whatever was around with the permissive support of playworkers. Our research celebrates and adds to this history through collecting people's memories and stories at adventure playgrounds in Bristol and Gloucester. Our short film shares some of these stories with you. Each story is but one single and particular, often shared and multi-layered story. Collectively, they show just how much these spaces mattered and continue to matter for children, staff and communities as places for play and for being a little different in and with the world and for much more besides. What we did was create encounters between people and things. People came back to the playground, people who'd played, worked or volunteered there or who'd managed them. Being there in the space was important. Even though it had changed a lot and in some cases even changed site, the playgrounds had particular atmospheres, provoking collective memories. So people talked with each other, looked at old photos and responded to a number of creative prompts, and this gave rise to a whole range of shared memories and stories. We recorded the events using video, photos, audio recordings and the work of artists who listened to the stories and produced a number of works that you'll see in our film.
Best time of my life. Oh, look at that. Jeez, man. Makes me have a lump in my throat. It really does.
Oh, I love you.
Does it take you back? It does, yeah.
Everybody's all smiling in the photos.
Because it was like an amazing time. It was like everyone had a crap life in the house, but as soon as you got to the adventure, it was like it was a really good time.
People spoke about all sorts of things, about how central the playground was to their lives, how it was a safe place to be, somewhere they could be themselves. They talked about how important the playworkers were and their relationships with other children and adults, sometimes not so harmonious, but always significant. They talked about how the playgrounds were very different from other aspects of life, with people they wouldn't meet anywhere else, how they could do things and experience things they wouldn't anywhere else. They talked about activities and trips, about animals, food, community and building the playground. Happy stories, stories of excitement and some of fear and sadness, always moving stories of rich emotions. They were intensive and extensive, powerful, singular but connected, full of personal and collective meaning. Overall, they were accounts of just how important the playgrounds were in their lives, often in ways that went beyond current ways of measuring value. These adventure playgrounds were, and still are, places of safety, places of excitement, places of belonging, places of encounters, places of difference, places a bit on the edge, places of ritual, placements of movement and moving places.
And then I couldn't believe it was here, really. It was kind of like very much Doctor Who's TARDIS. I kind of walked, and kind of walk in, and I was like, wow.
Adventure Playground is just the norm to me, to be honest. It's just part of my life, part of my upgrowing. Even I'm here, people asking me about it, but it's literally just part of my generation. Well, everyone's generation. Now I have a child myself, her being part of it, and the community spirit, and just having them vibes.
An adventure playground can be such an important part of a community.
Yeah.
When it's working, it's just an amazing place, and it's essential for kids who live in areas like this.
Adventure playgrounds are often spoken about as places of risk, excitement and, well, adventure. But many people also talked about how safe they felt there, how they could be themselves, how the adults were accepting and caring, and children found ways of navigating the space so they weren't too bothered by those kids with more status and power. This highlights how important relationships were and offers up a different understanding of safety from the more traditional concerns with preventing accidents.
Safe! It was like, it's to feel safe. It was someone to feel safe. It was like, yeah, I keep saying at my home.
cramps. I didn't want to go home because I knew either my mum's going to have a go at me, stepdad's going to have a go at me. That's how I felt at that time. It wasn't even just being parents, I was being a teenager. But, you know, it's just like, I felt, coming here, it's like, yeah, I go to somewhere where I know I'm familiar. And I know I'm going to be alright. I can come in. If I want to cry, I cry. If I want to, like, shout at rant and rave, I can shout at rant and rave.
So they were like hanging out places?
Yeah, they were like, the boys used to go on their, like, the bikes, the BMXs, or whatever we used to do, and then we'd sit on the edge of the bowls where they're riding around, and we're just chatting.
Adventure playgrounds are much more than a fence plot of ground. They are produced through encounters and relationships between bodies, movements, sensations, things, and the ways in which they get caught up together. These movements produce rhythms, moods, habits, rituals and routines that enable children and adults to navigate and negotiate their way through the playground and keep a playful atmosphere alive, as the following examples show.
I was here in the mid-60s, just come in, there wasn't no fences or anything, and it had a structure, old boat, we used to call it a ship, but it was just a large boat, and we used to call it the shipwreck, and we just come over and have mud fights.
When we're building, it's not even there anymore, but there's a tall aerial runway over there. It's like 4 or 5 metres to the top platform. I'd come in one morning and there was a kid sat on the top of each one of those poles, like crows. So you can imagine, there's about 8 or 10 of these big poles in the ground, and there's a kid sat on each one. Right, John? Having a fag, and they're like this in the wind.
Well, the Cooler Crew was a group that I joined when I was about roughly 11 years old. There was a group of about 8 of us in the end. It was a group that done singing and dancing. We thoroughly enjoyed it. It got us all together. We had day trips out together. We used to go to theatres and do acts and dances and theatre singing.
And did you practice and rehearse those here in the playground?
Yeah, in this time, yeah.
All the time?
Yeah. We thought we was Destiny's Child, basically. Yeah.
Did you get annoyed with the other kids sort of interrupting?
Oh yeah, the boys especially, who we hung around with, would be banging on the door. The head was shut like, and we were in here practicing.
What's your strongest memory of that period?
The zip wire and the structure, and also, oh my gosh, the goats. I just have a very distinctive memory of the goats running around and goat droppings everywhere.
I first became aware of it mainly because of the geese and the hens and the chickens and the animals that would make a lot of noise and wake me up in the morning. So I didn't always appreciate the space for what it was until suddenly I walked around the back of the house and saw all this wonderful space.
I played there as a child. In the corner there, you may be able to make out, but there's a doorway. It's been sealed for a while now, but we used to climb over. And you see all around the edges, that's been there from, like I said, like the 70s. So walk all the way around there, stay in touch.
Many of the stories showed how for the children the playground was both an enclave, a safe space set apart from the rest of their lives, and at the same time integral to it. Its boundaries were porous. It was often a place on the edge, a space of difference itself.
When they were building the underpasses for the roundabout at Lawrence Hill roundabout, they were stacking all the bricks. And they were digging big holes. So there was these massive holes. So when it rained, there were these massive puddles. And there were these bricks, fresh.
Just asking
to be thrown in. So we're there, bums away. Anyway, round the corner, BC Pod came round, innit?
Playgrounds have got a long history of inclusion and diversity, and even from when I was coming to this one in St Paul's, there's always been a big mix of cultures and the differences, and they've always been very inclusive for anyone who's a little bit different. They're a magnet for it, and play workers are a magnet for people who are a little bit different, or people might think, even now I'm working with eccentric characters who can tune into children, and can get on into their level and understand what's going on.
So tell me about some of the eccentric characters that you've worked with.
Dick Turpin, or Richard as we called him, because kids would just, if it was Dick this, Dick that, it would just get silly. He's bonkers. in a lovely way, like I say. But he'd have rotten veg and stuff like, and he'd eat anything like, you know, he'd eat stuff off the floor, the man, the guy, and the kids are like, he's nasty, I'm not eating anything that he's cooked.
Many stories told about the rituals of the playgrounds. For some, one of the rituals was the cooking and sharing of food.
My mum, she's cooked like ridiculous amounts of pots of food for this place. So my memory isn't so much about the eating of it, but it's more about what I'm doing in mum's kitchen. So I always get the onions and the carrots and the chopping and the carrying and the lifting. But yeah, my mum cooks delicious food, and so, you know, I'm very lucky and blessed in that way. And I guess, you know, just watching people, other many people, enjoying, you know, what mum's cooked.
Paddy's story about the storm drains on his playground is another illustration of rituals and rites of passage.
Because we used to go up the tunnels, there's sewage tunnels here from the stormwater tunnels. We used to, there was like a competition who could go to the furthest manholes. You crawl in them, because it was like that high. And then the competition was going to the most manholes. Like a manhole would be like 5 minutes away. You could stand up and then you burn your name in the concrete, you know, with a candle. Nothing, so to prove you got there, so it was who could get the furthest.
As important as the playground space was, there were also many stories of being taken out of the playground and the community on trips, outings and camps. Many children could not afford to go on holiday, and this was their only chance to go somewhere different, as Dave explained.
Lots of times I take kids on camp, give them a bit of paper. A few kids come back to me and say, you know, I said, what's the matter? Mum can't afford it. I go straight down and I say, he's coming. We'll pay for him at the tuck shop.
Sometimes particular trips gave rise to powerful memories and shared moments of excitement, hilarity and even fear.
We were mountain biking in the woods and there was a storm.
You were there?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we were like, we're gonna die!
Yeah, I thought we were gonna die as well.
I remember seeing this bridge.
I really thought that's the most scared I've ever been.
And then having to cross this bridge, and then I think you went back.
I cycled all the way back to the van,
to get the van to come and save us.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
We thought we were gonna die.
Yeah, I had to get my White City family somewhere safe, and then I had to go through it was a thunder. Were you on that ride? Thunder? Thunder and lightning, yeah, it was terrible. It was the worst storm I've ever been in. I actually thought we might die.
I thought you were.
No, you all came back. One of the kids said, when there's danger, you said we always get in our shelter and hold hands. And I said, do not even touch each other. We were on bikes and the lightning was flashing through the trees, wasn't it? And I thought, there'd be a ring of death where we all hold hands and get struck together. And
I never ever forget that.
We heard many stories like this, and also stories of more everyday events created by children, adults, things inside and outside of the fence. Today, adventure playgrounds are often talked about either in terms of positive outcomes for children and communities, what interests the policymakers or the funders, or in more general terms of the benefits of play for children. These spaces are all those things, and yet they are also much, much more. One of the questions we ask people is what they might put in a time capsule that would symbolise their time at the playground. Here are some of their responses.
Cassettes.
Music
cassettes.
Music.
Yeah.
Play Willies.
Yeah. Play Willies.
What is it about boys? You put clay on the table and they make willies.
I remember.
What is that about? Can someone tell me? There must have been 1,000 clay willies made on this playground.
Ashtrays.
Anything to do with tuck shop?
Ice pools.
There'd be some tools in there. We've done a lot of building and a fixing and a breaking. Whether we can have some spanners and a saw maybe. I need to take a rope, like a nice big soft, big rope.
Memory is a strange thing. Conversations about past events are always told from the present, and as such they matter now. People were animated and so were the stories. Memories were made, remade and brought to life. And so we weren't looking for accuracy, even in the timeline we took to each event, where people talked about what had happened when and about key people. What we were looking for were the stories, myths and legends that inevitably but unpredictably emerged from these lively encounters with memories, imaginations, emotions, artefacts, the photos, the landscape, the time capsule, timeline and each other, both the people who turned up and absent others.
That was it. You leave school and you go to adventures and you meet up with your friends and you have that that interaction and that playing, and even sometimes just watching other kids, because sometimes there'll just be kids just watching, but it's just being together and knowing we're all like taking part in something, like, and even now it's still here and having that and having my child go, it's just brilliant. Don't even know what else.
You know, I can walk around St Paul's now and know nearly every single family, or I know someone from the family if I don't know them. It's a very small place, and people will just remember the joy from this place, and I'll get nothing but love. They remember the joy that they got from the place and how great it was. It's memories, we're making memories.
The final story is Amber and Damien's. They met at White City Adventure Playground in Gloucester. When we held the event there, the playworkers told us that Amber and Damien were getting married and were trying to convince them to come to the playground on their wedding day to have their photo taken there. A short while later, this photo appeared on the playground's Facebook page. Congratulations, Amber and Damien, our first playground wedding.
We were the wild, wild children of the street. We were taught to catch your dreams if you can. Then put the babies' wellies on and help them in the back of the van. Oh, and I remember Sophie dancing round the room, singing, here it comes, this is the best bit of the tune. She waves her fingers in the air, says, doesn't it make you fizz? And I understand that Sophie knows what magic is. I understand that Sophie knows what magic is.
Clay Willis.